Hey guys, so let's go over Douglas Murray again because the last time I checked up on this guy, he was trying to talk about how much or how much he wanted to apologize basically for the South, which is funny since he's British. Kind of makes sense since the Brits did in fact help the South back in the day, but doing some apologia he did last for Jim Crow era statues and wanted to bring up that their leftists are just erasing culture for no reason other than just to erase culture. Very pseudosciency. And looking up on this lovely gent, he's known for some conspiracy and also part of the oh so lovely intellectual dark web. But here he's going to be covering why President Biden must unify the USA or face catastrophe. I'm really curious to see what he says here because there's honestly a lot of the unity thing that Biden ran on is honestly not where he should have been running because they don't want to unify and they don't, more or less, not all, know what that would mean, right? They don't want any losses with unity. They want it to all be theirs. A lot of people do. And we'll talk about that. I don't think anyone should be spared any quarter. The unity kind of stuff has gone out the window. I want a better country now and going forward, and that does not mean settling. I'm sorry. So, anyways.
Well, we often hear that the United States of America is a divided country. Has always sounded like an understatement compared to what we have going on right now. You know, Joe Biden has talked a fair amount in recent weeks about the importance of unifying the country.
I pledge to be a president who seeks not to divide, but unify.
It has to be said that there was more of that rhetoric at the time that it seemed like the Republicans might hold on to the Senate. That isn't the case now. The Democrats have a clean sweep. They've got Congress, the Senate, they've got the White House.
Biden has for sure stayed on that rhetoric. I believe they even had a what holiday was it recently where they like had a unity theme lawn decorations or whatever. So I'm sure, you know what, it's very possible that they were going for unity. And I'm sure like all this rhetoric's way more out there and being propagated during election. So, I mean, I won't deny him here. But it's still ongoing. That's been a part of his rhetoric.
And it is noticeable that in recent days there has been more divisive talk, not just from Joe Biden, but from the leadership of the Democratic Party, than talk of unity. We've seen Nancy Pelosi and other senior Democrats attempt a second impeachment of Donald Trump.
Okay. First off, mentioning Nancy Pelosi in this regard is pretty funny since she herself came out saying that we need a strong Republican Party. And we don't. We already have a strong conservative party, and that is the libs. It's the liberals. So no, we don't need more of that. Now going on to an impeachment, yeah. These things do not have anything to do with one another, okay? You can still, by unity, mind you, first and foremost, we mean the people, right? Then we can talk senators and whatnot like that since they represent the people, but we want to bring the people back together. Now, mind you, will an impeachment bring people back together? No. However, majority of this country is in agreement that they did not want Trump and they did want him punished and impeached. This has nothing to do with the nation's unity. While Trump has become a monolith and symbol of the Republican Party, he is still not the Republican Party. Conflating him this way is only furthering that rhetoric and that idea. And yeah, like there's no reason for this. Like it's not. Sorry, what I mean by that is not the unity or what unity would mean for a voter. Unity would hopefully mean not getting rid of your God King, but hearing those American voices that need to be heard and should be taken seriously. The working class and poor Americans, who are mostly Democrat, mind you, but those that are Republicans in more rural areas also do need to be heard because their worlds are being altered by corporations that are on their last legs and trying to always find something new. Unity is not about impeaching the guy that you voted for. Let's get out of this mindset. There's a great TikTok on this about like a woman saying, all those who voted for Biden, all those Biden fans, why aren't you guys making TikToks and YouTube videos and stuff and being proud of your president? And it's like, because we're not his fans. And yeah, we shouldn't be for Trump. We shouldn't be for Biden. They are elected officials. They work for us, not the other way around, right? We get so lost in this idea of like cult leadership and the idea of leadership in general. Bernie's brought this up very well, like talking about why people call him Bernie, right? Because in the end, he's just another guy that the others decided that he should work for them. Okay? That is all the elected position is for. Obviously, though, in this American government, it means so much more. I mean, it means dynasties. It means power and connection to companies. Look at Nancy Pelosi, whose father was in politics. I believe a senator as well. I got to check on that. But we do not need this worship of it. And that stops and starts with holding people accountable. Okay? And holding people accountable is not about unity. It is about justice being blind, right? With the cloth over her eyes. Fuck this. This is a very stupid argument.
We have seen Joe Biden make some really quite astonishing pronouncements. He issued a video last week in which he talked about the importance of helping American business owners, small businesses that have been suffering through the coronavirus crisis. And he said that his administration had great sympathy for small business owners who had been suffering in the last year. But, and this is what he said,
our priority will be Black, Latino, Asian, and Native American-owned small businesses, women-owned businesses.
And this is very, very interesting because this is an echo of the rhetoric you hear from the radical left of Joe Biden's party, which divides up America, like everything else in the world, along ethnic and racial and gender, sex.
So he likes to go into identity politics a lot. Or what he's saying that leftists, just the radical left, only do these things because they love to pull this kind of like we're not the racist ones, they are. They're the ones who always bring race up into things. Or we're just talking about class when in fact they're not. And another thing to be wary about is class reductionism. And we'll get into that, right? So what is class reductionism? Class reductionism or a class reductionist is, especially, and this does happen with leftists, often tankies or authoritarian leftists or people with more authoritarian leanings in leftism, is you have class reductionists. Class reductionist is when you boil everything down to class, which a lot of it is, right? Social, economic, and saying, well, if we just fixed these class issues, there wouldn't be any race issues anymore. There wouldn't be any gender issues anymore. But that we know that's not true because of A, racism exists, and B, the already socioeconomic structures that have been built around capitalism that affects class and race. So when he's going into this, right? Now, Biden might very well, I mean, if they fully do, I'm curious to see what prioritizing these businesses would be. But if this is the case and they actually do follow through with it in a smart way, then good. What it means, though, is that how class and how class and race and gender intersect, or what they call intersectionality, which we might, you hear in college classes, and you hear from some woke lefty types, often talking about intersectionality. And intersectionality meaning that these sections of class intersect with race and gender, such as a larger percentage of black people are poorer as well. And a lot of people that are LGBTQ, IA, or let's say intersectionality between class and trans issues, right? So if you're lower class and transgender, you're much more likely to be, a lot of this is, by the way, affected by class, because one thing that gets you decent in America, right? You can be swarmed around plenty of racist people, still be black, but you're rich. So you're definitely going to be treated different, probably better. That doesn't, however, discount the fact that you are still black in America, which, while being very wealthy, will help put away a lot of that. You're still, not put away, but dampen. You still have to worry about the common everyday racism from randoms, as well as systemic structures. You're able to generally bypass a little bit more of the structures, such as policing or things like that, if you're famous and wealthy and black. Still worse than if you're white, but there are aspects of your life that you can get around generally a little bit easier than more other black people. However, because of socioeconomic issues, because of redlining black and brown people outside of communities, such as why you have Trader Joe's in generally the wealthier neighborhoods, which is really frustrating when they have some of the healthier and better food for you at cheaper prices. But of course, those are only in the more expensive parts of town, right? And this is how places are economically gentrified. Also, for a very long time, and I believe probably still now, black people were just not given the ability to take out loans for this better housing. And we know through plenty of research that if you have a black sounding name, quote unquote, or characteristics that might show that you're black on applications, at least in college and work, we can tell that they are far less likely to be picked. These are these types of issues that are both legal and cultural, and a lot of legal stuff is based off of culture, right? If you take an anthropology 101 course, you often talk about what's the difference between culture and society, and you end up leaving that class with no real direct answer, because they are both the same thing, affecting one another, right? Laws affect culture, and culture affects laws. So these things are what they call socioeconomic. They can't just be undone by just doing laws, and you don't want to do just a law like affirmative action, which does help, but there are issues with it, right? Where you're basically making it hiring black people or whatnot, like as a quota, or what it's more supposed to be like, and is more or less effective at doing, is if you have two people with matching resumes and they're both equally qualified for the job, but one's black, one's white, then you should take the black person, because they are less likely to be able to get a job because of the color of their skin and the race or ethnicity, right? That white guy is probably going to be able to find another job very soon. Okay, that is what affirmative action is supposed to be when it works properly. However, we also know that people are at the end of that, right? So when they're talking about getting money to black-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, well, women have had a lot longer of a time outside of being able to actually even have checking accounts. I believe that even changed in the 60s, I think, or 70s. Women couldn't even have checking accounts. So money being saved and then given on an inheritance and so forth, has had far less time to be able to accumulate, or less time to be taught to save and invest. Basically, and this is where, white male privilege comes from, right? Is that white men have had this advantage and been learning this stuff for a lot longer, and we're the makers of this system. And that's why it benefits people like me over so many others. So, does that mean people that are white that own small businesses can't be poor? No, obviously they can be. You're just more likely to if you're black. You're more likely to make less money if you're a woman. So yeah, when these businesses come up that you want to save, of course you want to prioritize them, because they get the less attention. They have less safety guards. They've been discriminated against at every turn in general, and it is harder for them to succeed just because of socioeconomic issues. Is it a bit of a virtue signal? Probably a bit. I'm curious to see how this would implement. You do need to implement it smartly, absolutely. It needs to be done in a way that can be, I don't want to say completely equal, because then you aren't assisting those groups, but equitable in a way that other groups can still support their business, but also you can give additional safety nets towards these black and brown businesses, women-owned businesses, LGBTQIA plus businesses, which definitely need it. These places are needed, especially right now. We don't need any larger businesses right now in New York coming in, and we need more places that are like in Harlem, which is a black, more or less black neighborhood with black and Mexican, black and Hispanic, not Mexican, but Hispanic in general, neighborhood. So we need more of those businesses, and especially now, because otherwise we lose the culture. We'll be able to seep out, and people that are have had a stronger safety net because of the system benefiting them just a little bit more, then yeah, promote that, because we don't want the culture being sucked out of these neighborhoods. Not every place is like that. If you live in the suburbs, you probably haven't seen it as much, but when you live in a city like this, they are so, like, the neighborhoods are so culturally distinct, and I don't want that to be gone. And so yeah, you do need to do that. Same thing for Portland as well. There and New York, there's a lot of places that are just LGBTQIA plus, like Stonewall, and a lot of places like that, a lot of black-owned businesses in Harlem. These things, it's not saying that they're not, first off, they're not saying that they aren't looking at still spending money and supporting other businesses. But yeah, these people do need to be looked out after for, because they've been done wrong by the system. Not only that, are getting hit harder than white people are because of COVID. And by white people, excuse me, I mean white males, because obviously they brought in women in this this proposal here, what they were talking about, of all races and ethnicities. But black people were hit harder. Women make, on average, less money and are more educated, which also means they're generally more of those people with school loans. So, yeah, no, I don't see the issue here. Like, these people need it more. So are we just, when black people are being affected by COVID more because of systemic issues in healthcare, such as a lot of doctors thinking that the pain range is different for black people, that black people get sick less, because these things have been pervasive within medicine, which is gross. But these things affect how people, and there are already so many poor black Americans that also can't get insurance, right? So yeah, these, and already very hard for them to get loans. So yeah, we do need to help these people out more. We do need to help other people of other ethnicities and women who have all been affected by these things more so than a white guy who started a business all on his own. And you know what? He worked really hard, and that's fine. He did, I'm sure. The whole thing talking about intersectionality or privilege has nothing to do with that you did not, you personally work hard. You can still work your ass off and worked so fucking hard to get where you're at, like I have. However, that doesn't mean while you're running on a treadmill like this, that while you might be killing it and sweating, that doesn't mean that someone else running on the same treadmill next to you, except it's on a 45-degree incline, doesn't mean that they might not need a little bit of extra help because they running the same speed. The incline's just set a bit differently for them. Okay? So anyways, back to it.
Lines. That isn't the language of unity. It is the language of division. America at the moment does not need its new president to be dividing the country up along ethnic lines and talking about who it should be prioritizing along ethnic or sex lines. It needs a president to do what Joe Biden has said in the past that he would do, which is to unite the country. The great worry in America has always been the growing division, the growing echo chambers, among other things. What we see isn't just a difference of opinion between left and right, Democrat and Republican, over their interpretation of events, but increasingly a disagreement over events, over what they've seen. Significant numbers of Democrats believe that Donald Trump wasn't legitimately elected in 2016. They tried for years, senior Democrats, to prove, and didn't prove, that there'd been Russian meddling or hacking of the election.
Is known fact proven that the Russians did in fact meddle in the 2016 election. The Republican Senate inquiry also has acknowledged this, and they will do that in Senate form and then go outside and talk shit about it. Now, there's some important parts to this. Many people in the Trump campaign did talk with Russian assets. It's very concerning, and it would seem that many of them were talking on his behalf, trying to get votes or power or exchange of some sorts. There was no direct contact with Trump. And let's be real, Vladimir Putin, Prime Minister and dictator of Russia, de facto dictator, had preferences towards Trump, absolutely. However, more so than that, what they've cared more for than anything, and where libs have fucked up, is that they just want chaos. They want us to distrust the system more and more, which makes people not vote, which makes it easier for them to weasel their way in, get money, get paid for things, and break down our democracy. They do it with actual hacking into voting systems and registries. One of the easiest ways. Actually, there's a great film on this called Kill Chain on HBO. You should definitely watch it, especially if you have HBO Max. It's on there for sure. I think it's in HBO, one of the other ones as well, under their documentaries. It's called Kill Chain, and it's talking about how easy it is to hack this type of stuff. But one of the easiest ways is to switch around voting registration information, and then they can't vote. So things like that, actual changing poll numbers, yada yada. But what happens to be the thing that they do the most, which they, as in the IRA, the Internet Research Association company, I thought it was, but it's not IRC, but it's the IRA Russia. I believe it's Internet Research Agency, I think, yeah. Which is a little bit of a psyop that is literally their job is to make meme accounts. And that's both like black Twitter meme accounts, liberal leftist meme accounts, conservative, like Proud Boy, like anything. And they'll leave some dead for a while, come back to them, do whatever. But they are feeding all sides of the aisle. And so Hassan talks about this quite a bit. Hassanabi, he'll bring up that, like, yes, Russiagate was a thing, but libs get on it and talk about it. What about Russiagate? What about this? What about that? Or like he's in the back pocket of Putin, which, you know, I've been on that train. I've been there. There's obviously some dealings with Putin and in Russia. I mean, between the conversations and him building that Trump building there, we didn't get a ton of evidence. However, the biggest thing that we do know is that A, he tried to obstruct, and B, there was absolutely Russian meddling within our elections and continuing so till this day in our current culture and political sphere, and just all sorts. They're trying to get their skill is digital warfare. And we should be worried about it and cognizant of it. So anytime that someone brings up Russiagate or whatever and dismisses it, go with, yes, libs were stupid and they're clinging on to it too much. However, Russian meddling has been confirmed by a Republican Senate intel inquiry, and just about everyone and all the three-letter agencies, which fuck them, but it's been by everyone and is known fact. So just say, yep, libs overreacted about a lot of it. However, it is proven without a doubt that it has happened, and that all of us, libs, leftists, conservatives, Republicans, whatever you want to go by, need to be careful and need to get off things like Facebook and get our families members off of Facebook, our grandparents, right? I know my grandfather is going crazy on all the Facebook bullshit that he reads, and I need to really talk to him about it. But him, others, they don't understand meme culture like we do. We can look at, like, this came up in a great podcast, which is QAnon Anonymous, where they make fun of QAnon stuff and talk about the news about it. But it was talking about, like, someone seeing a meme that they were like swore that was actual video footage or whatever of Hillary Clinton eating babies, when it was probably literally, let's be real, poorly photoshopped bullshit that they saw, and they're like, yep, that's all I needed to see, because they're just looking for something to confirm their biases right now. And if that means seeing, like, crazy looking Hillary Clinton that is eating babies or whatever, they're going to believe it. And this is how the IRA and the other organizations in Russia that are doing this type of bullshit, how they disrupt. They'll even often post harmless memes, very harmless, maybe a little chuckle worthy, and then start importing more and more little racy stuff or radical stuff. And then they have people charged and excited. This is where we need to be careful. Dismissing this completely is more than just irresponsible. This is honestly, not working with Russia, but like working so much against the common people by just saying that this is a flat out lie. Like, this is so against everyone's interests. We need to recognize that we're all susceptible to this, and not just from Russia. Like, you can take away that part from it too. Just focus on the fact that because we've been doing this type of bullshit all over, and now we're susceptible of it because more of the internet. We need to be cognizant of where we get our digital media diet. We need to inform other people how they get their news media and digital media diet. And we need to treat it seriously because it's not just Russia, it's everyone. And we have giant targets on our backs in the US. So.
Much more. So they didn't believe that Donald Trump was legitimate president. The latest polls show the majority of Trump voters from November 2020 still don't believe that Joe Biden was legitimately elected in a free and fair election. This is a very important issue for the world's foremost democracy, the most powerful, richest democracy in the world, to be stuck in. So the most important thing, I think, in a way, practically, outside of foreign policy, would be to ensure that whatever happens in the next presidential election, indeed in the midterms, that both sides agree on the result. Otherwise, what we see in America is two groups, not just with different interpretations of events, but with different beliefs, different realities. They will continue to dig down in these. And of course, America has the most heavily armed citizenry of any country in the world. It has the Second Amendment. It is a country which has to find a way to unify. It has to find a way to reach across the divides that exist, because the digging down that we have seen in recent years from both sides of the political aisle is something that could yet lead to an absolute catastrophe.
We have to stop treating our opponents as our enemies. They are not our enemies. They are Americans. They're Americans.
I think perhaps number one policy to look out for in the Biden administration will be what is the new administration's attitude towards China. Joe Biden, over the many decades of his political career, has been keen on doing business with China. He indeed was one of the leading senators who was involved with some of the trade deals, which the Trump administration, among others, said massively disadvantaged American workers.
China is taking advantage of this country like nobody has ever taken advantage of the United States.
All right, let's be clear here. So, first off, do we need to reach across the aisle on things? Yes and no. One, we do need to be pragmatic. And not with conservatives. If there's something that they actually have, if you were a conservative friend, which they don't, you have a conservative friend, and they're like, well, we want President Trump in or these Republicans in office, and then you ask them why. And what do they say? School choice, or what's another popular one? They're not going to spend as much money, less welfare state, which is also stupid. I've gotten into that before, and we can continue chatting on their time, but what is it? If you press them on it enough, they will have no real policy answer. And this is why I needed to talk with some other friends about this, because, you know, they're not interested in politics. They're interested in games and sports. The people that we need to be working with pragmatically are the libs. They're the ones that are actually at least trying to make some change. And I mean that by the voters and some of the senators and representatives. That does not mean, though, we let them walk all over us and say, well, you know, it'll be a couple years, or it's not, we got to be smart about it, right? The minimum wage thing isn't all of Joe Biden's in his purview. That doesn't mean that we don't need him out there whipping for it, right? But we can also make concessions. Okay, well, what is a concession in regards to libs versus leftists here? Okay, well, we can take, how about wiping all debt away, but not necessarily free college just yet? Although that's a big one. We definitely need to rein in college, right? Or how about a public option for healthcare rather than all socialized? A public option being that there would be at least some public option that you can just go into, which, by the way, quote unquote, the ACA or Obamacare is not that. All Obamacare does is make sure that you can, it will find you cheaper, which is not that cheap still, insurance that you can get with your range and pay into. And because of that, then they can subsidize these plans because everyone is paying. That is why they had it so that if you're not using it, then you have to, you take a tax hit, right? So, these are the concessions to be made. This is where we reach across the aisle, not with, well, I was going to say mask mandates, but, well, yeah, not with mask mandates. Not saying that you have to wear it at all times, but like, we're not going to reach across the aisle on, saying, like saying that masks have to be done or that lockdowns have to be done. Like, no, because now there are ways around this and things that are actually legislatively that can be done. And we should, in different ways to do it, right? But nothing at all, no action at all is not acceptable right now, right? The other is like gun control. This is actually something that we could have concessions on. However, it needs to be wise and smart. And honestly, we've already kind of gone in with concessions already in hand, and they're not being accepted because no one is talking about taking away guns. No one. I think Joe, or was it Beto O'Rourke? Who was it that said, yeah, I'm going to take your guns away? Because, I don't know, there's an expression you might have heard. You go far left enough, you get your guns back. There is point to a well-armed proletariat. However, we do recognize and can recognize that there's a lot of people with mental health issues, and that more people with guns does not necessarily mean more safe. More often than not, it means not. Okay? So, psych checks, things like this, less weapons made for killing and fighting, like fully automatic weapons or modifications to weapons to make them shoot more and faster. These are concessions that we've already gone in with, basically concessions. It is not removing control of guns. It is, or you know what, we can just say, because we went in with this, it's not a concession. And it is not something that we should concede on. But we can go in on other things, or we can have our gun control but not have it be so limiting, and it shouldn't be, that it's a detriment. But Republicans don't care about that. They just care about the virtue signal and getting NRA their money, because that's who really cares about it. And the gun lobby, which the NRA is a part of, right? There are concessions that we can make, like I said, towards a better welfare state, better college, and better healthcare. There's not much we can make in the form of concessions towards climate change, except for years of how long you need to be cutting back by with fossil fuels, and then subsidize the fuck out of other industries in regards to clean energy and finding new solutions, creating more jobs. That's where we can make concessions. But all the other options that have been brought up to us, there are none, because most Trump supporters are not fighting for anything. Ollie. They're not fighting for anything. They're just fighting for someone. And I've seen this with friends of mine. It's very infuriating to me. I just want them to be able to make some like argument. And one friend I haven't even been able to talk to really since, and I know that they don't really have any policy position because they've never been interested in politics, but they are interested enough in Trump. And that's where we are. And that's why we cannot give these people any room. We can work to bring them back and argue with the libs.
The Trump administration did something very unusual in the last few decades. It saw China not as a competitor, but as an unfair competitor. That it was undercutting the American workers. It was, as a result, able to take business away unfairly to its own country. And we should remember that China, run by the Chinese Communist Party, is accused, among other things, of running factories that undercut foreign workers that are actually in China manned by unpaid and indeed slave labor. So this...
Okay, so, yeah, no, I agree. Actually, let me take that back. Because I don't want any country to go... I want all the best for the Chinese people. I want all the best for the American people. To a degree, there is some sense of nationalism that you should keep up in regards to keeping work here in this country. Because we need, first, fiat money, resources to be allocated. Excuse me. We need resources allocated for people here, and we need to take care of them. They are part of our group, and so we should take care of them, right? We should make sure that people have functions in society that are worthwhile to them, that they can go back to their families and pay for food. This shit does happen in China. That is because they are working with the U.S., or more so, U.S. corporations. Because U.S. corporations are the ones that are profiting off of this. And it's going to continue, and it should be sanctioned. Even if we pulled out there completely, they would find more places to sell to, other countries, at very low rates. But that's where we need to sanction them, and anything that comes in from there. And that's how we can do it, by the way. Not banning everything. Highly sanctioned tariff, which, Trump did in a very poor and shitty way. Last time he's affected farmers and crops, money even like coming in, but it was from our own stuff because it affected our own workers. We want to put tariffs on imports of, Chinese, not Chinese material, but China product that is being made in China, like T-shirts and stuff like this, clothes that are then sold by American companies or European companies that, or whomever, but being sold primarily in America. We need to focus on getting our work back here. And to everyone that's saying these higher taxes are going to move companies out, well, they're already going out. And there is evidence to show, I got to pull this up later, but to show that higher taxes do not actually get these large groups to leave. No, but they're already going to do it anyways because they can get a cheaper dollar. So that's why so many of their headquarters are here, though, still. But if they can get their product made elsewhere, so much of Chevy cars and Fords are made elsewhere, yet Mercedes, it's cheaper for them to make it here. And it actually provides decent jobs for Americans, which is really sad when it comes to the American companies can't. And that's really what it comes down to. We can blame China, and some of this is policy, but being friendly or opening up, mind you, we shouldn't be completely friendly with China. They do a lot of horrific or human rights abuses. However, just like us, we are absolutely great at doing human rights violations by killing, putting people in encampments, hysterectomies on people that were crossing the border without their permission, then doing hysterectomies. Yeah, we do pretty much all the same shit that China does. So we got to take care of our own shit. And yeah, we should sanction them on that. But there's so much more going into this than just, oh, well, we're nice to China or opening up relations. We should open up relations so that we can all better ourselves on this. We should not just ignore China, because they will grow and they will be bigger than us economically. So
this is a massive human rights as well as a geostrategic and indeed an American economic issue. Donald Trump and his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo in particular, made a huge issue of this.
We want every nation to work together to push back against the Chinese Communist Party's efforts in every dimension that I described to you today.
Also, just a reminder that China's not, like, they'll call themselves communists, and yeah, there's aesthetics there for that, but they're state capitalists. So, but also remember, we're also dealing with an uptick of Asian American, not Asian American violence, but violence on and towards Asian Americans and non-Asian Americans, but Asians in this country. And by that, I mean the U.S. And that's probably happening all over as well. But a big part of that, by that, I mean globally. A large part of that, though, was because of Trump and his, like, needing to distract, calling it the China virus or all of this. This has provided so much xenophobia, which is a fancy term for prejudice against Chinese people. Xenophobia throughout this country. It's harmed this country. And they weren't really that tough on China. They were just annoying on China. And he liked to use China as an excuse. And yet, not much has really changed in that. They've not really been very tough on China in the right senses. Brought up the Uyghur camps. That's important. We should talk more about that. Leftists also need to stop doing apologia for that. I see it mostly being tankies, but I see a lot of tankies. Then a lot of people saying that it's just a CIA op. There is information that truly does not seem to correlate with that idea. But that same information doesn't take away from the fact that America's involved in this same bullshit that the Trump administration criticized China for. And we are no better than them. Should we sanction, tell them not to, tell them, what we expect of a country that we work with, while at the same time fixing our own shit, because we're doing the same thing and we're leading by example.
The question now is whether the Biden administration attaches all, as it were, CCP, that's Chinese Communist Party hostile policies, ties them so much with the Trump administration that it decides that it will just simply reverse all of that and run away from that. I think a lot of people would see that as a mistake. It would be a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But as the American economy and all other economies in the world try to dig ourselves out of the hole that was caused by the coronavirus that emanated from China last year, the attitude of the American president towards China,
the fact that it came from there, really has no bearing on this. He's just saying it to dog whistle. It has no bearing. Yeah, SARS viruses have historically come out of China. A lot of reasons for that. A big part of it being population. But these viruses and diseases can come out of anywhere. So let's quit assigning blame for something that is so stupid to assign blame for. Let's just fix the fucking problem.
Towards trade with China, human rights attitudes towards China, and much more is going to be perhaps the issue of the absolutely utmost significance.
I don't know how he is necessarily walking back from everything with China. We should, though, be making, like I mentioned, we need open dialogue. A lot of people may not like that. China's done a lot of fucked up shit. They deserve to be reprimanded. They deserve to have tariffs on their products coming in, sanctions. And the U.S. needs to very much advance and try to investigate and pressure into investigating the Uyghur Muslim issue, a potential genocide that is happening that needs to be investigated more. At the same time, while the U.S. is fucking destroying the camps at the southern border, making sure those people that are there have a place to live and our families are connected. Because how this is going is right now, like I said, what goes on with China, we want more jobs here that make it so that these people can be educated and have decent jobs and sanction anyone that wants to outsource. And then, you know what? Which evidence shows to the contrary. But if taxes make them go away, then good. Fuck them. We don't need them. Innovation will come anyways. So that's what I got to mainly say on that aspect of where we're at with jobs in America, and in regards to China. We need to lead by example, and we need to have open dialogue. Out of that, though, where he was going on to identity politics and saying that that won't unify Americans, bro, this isn't. Those are Americans. Those are the people that have not and have historically not been able to be successful because of these socioeconomic factors that I brought up earlier in this video. That doesn't mean that everyone else gets left behind. They said who gets prioritized with good reason. We know black people have been affected more economically and health-wise in the COVID-19 pandemic. We know women make less money and are more educated, meaning that they, or if I said less, I meant more educated, which means that they also have more loans. That's not right. That's why these people do need to be prioritized. Him trying to bring this to identity politics without recognizing the reason, the meat and potatoes of why they bring up identity politics is just virtue signaling. He's just bringing up, look, they don't care about you. They only care about the black and brown people, only the women, only the LGBTQIA+, only, which they wouldn't say that. They'd say only the gays or the trans people. And they'd probably say it in a worse way than I just did right there. They'd say these things because that's what their identity politics is, flipping the actual important identity politics that has substance to it, that has data and decades of research showing why these things and things like COVID-19 affect black people more, and why these groups are these marginalized groups are more so affected, and why they do need an extra hand up, why their treadmill is at a 45 degree while someone like me, mine is at a level playing field. Okay, he just glosses over that because he doesn't want you to think about that, because he wants you to feel like the victim. He wants you, sad little white lonely boy Brad, who can't go out and meet anybody because you're awkward, which is fine, because you're sexually frustrated, because COVID-19 has you frustrated. But all these other people get to go out there and they get their help, but where's yours? Where's Brad's? That's what he's trying to do. Trying to make you feel like you're being left out when you're not. People that look like me, you're not. not necessarily even people that look like me, people who look like and identify like me, who are subject to the same socioeconomic situations. I've said as much as I can say on this. This is more, it's not even, he didn't even go into pseudoscience bullshit. He just went into basically id poll, identity politics, but more on the conservative end, making you try to feel sorry for yourself and that like others are not watching out after you. And stupid. Anyways,